The city of Boston awoke under a silver dawn, the skyline glowing with ambition. Adrian Cole, 35, was a man who embodied that ambition. His biotech empire had made him one of the youngest billionaires in America. But despite the headlines, the glossy magazine covers, and the effortless charm he displayed at charity galas, Adrian's private life carried a quiet desperation. He could not have children. After years of failed treatments, the diagnosis had become a permanent shadow over his carefully built empire. His fiancée, Clara Westwood, adored by the tabloids as Boston's it girl, tolerated his flaw only because of his fortune. Behind closed doors, her patience thinned. "A man with no heir leaves nothing," she once hissed during an argument. Those words haunted Adrian more than the sterile white walls of any clinic. So when his personal physician recommended one last experimental procedure at a prestigious fertility center, Adrian agreed. His samples were to be frozen, tested, and eventually used in advanced surrogacy trials. Every detail was supposed to be private, confidential, and perfect. But that same week, on the other side of the city, Naomi Reed arrived at the very same clinic. Not as a patient of privilege, but as a volunteer. Naomi was 22, raised in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce. She had dreams of becoming a nurse, but tuition bills towered higher than her income as a part-time cleaner. The clinic offered a program, free health checkups, small stipends, and educational credits for low-income women willing to participate in routine medical screenings. Naomi, practical and hopeful, signed up. She never imagined her life would intersect with the billionaire whose face she had only seen on the cover of Forbes. The day of the mistake began with something simple. An overworked nurse, a mislabeled chart, and a distracted doctor rushing between appointments. Naomi was supposed to receive a vitamin-based injection as part of her screening. Instead, she was escorted into a private suite, normally reserved for the clinic's wealthiest clients. She felt nervous as the doctor spoke in hurried terms she barely understood. "This will only take a moment," he assured, not realizing the chart in his hands did not belong to her. With a steady hand, he injected a sample that had been carefully prepared, frozen, and thawed under strict protocols, a sample that belonged to Adrian Cole. Naomi didn't know what had just happened. She only knew the sting of the needle, the polite smile of the nurse, and the odd feeling that she had been treated like someone far more important than herself. By the time she left the clinic, the error was already locked into fate. Meanwhile, Adrian sat in his penthouse office reviewing merger documents. His brother and business partner, Damian Cole, warned him against Clara. "She loves the spotlight, not you," Damian argued. But Adrian brushed him off. "I'll fix everything once I solve this," he replied, tapping the fertility file on his desk. He had no idea his destiny had just walked out of the clinic in worn sneakers and a second-hand coat. Days passed. Naomi returned to her routines, cleaning offices at night, attending community college classes by day, and visiting her mother who was recovering from chronic illness. Life was difficult, but stable, until one morning she felt strange, weak, dizzy, unlike herself. The clinic called her back for follow-up tests, and that was when the truth began to unravel. In a private meeting, the clinic director's face drained of color. "There has been a grave error," he confessed. Naomi stared at him in disbelief as he explained what no young woman should ever hear. That inside her, by mistake, lived the possibility of another man's child. Not just any man, but Adrian Cole, the billionaire whose wealth could buy silence, but not undo fate. Naomi's world spun. She was poor, inexperienced, and had never even been in a relationship. Now she was bound by science and accident to a man who didn't even know she existed. And somewhere across town, Adrian's life was about to collide with hers in a way neither of them could control. Naomi Reed sat in the clinic's small consultation room, her hands clenched on her lap as the director's words echoed in her ears. A grave error. That phrase felt like a gavel striking down on her life. She wanted to scream to deny it, to walk away and pretend it wasn't real. But the evidence was undeniable. The test results, the records, the signed protocols. Somehow, impossibly, she had been inseminated with Adrian Cole's genetic material. "I don't understand," Naomi whispered, her voice trembling. I came here for vitamins, for a checkup. How, how is this even legal? The director's face tightened with shame. It was a clerical error, Miss Reed. Your chart was confused with another patient's. I assure you, the doctor responsible has been suspended. The clinic will compensate you. Compensate me? Naomi's shock flared into anger. You turned my life into a headline waiting to happen. You can't just buy me off. But the director avoided her eyes. His phone buzzed twice on the desk. The caller ID flashed Adrian Cole. Naomi caught the name and froze. The billionaire? The one on magazine covers? The one everyone whispered about? Mr. Cole is the biological donor, the director finally admitted. The room tilted around her. Naomi felt as if she were falling without end. She wanted to disappear, to run back to her small apartment and curl under the blankets until the world stopped spinning. But destiny didn't wait for her to catch her breath. That same evening, Adrian Cole was hosting a charity dinner. Cameras flashed, champagne glasses clinked, and Clara Westwood dazzled in a sequined gown at his side. On the surface, Adrian's life looked flawless. But when his private phone buzzed with the clinic's emergency call, he excused himself. In a quiet corridor, the truth spilled out. An accident occurred, the director stammered over the line. One of your samples was mistakenly administered. Adrian's blood ran cold. To whom? A participant in our community program. A young woman. Adrian leaned against the marble wall, his hand tightening on the phone. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a scandal waiting to ignite. If the press discovered it, Clara would leave. Investors would panic, and his carefully built empire could shatter overnight. Who is she? He demanded. I cannot disclose her identity without her consent. Adrian hung up, his mind spinning. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Naomi, meanwhile, returned home in silence. Her mother, frail but kind-eyed, noticed immediately. What happened at the clinic, baby? Naomi swallowed the lump in her throat. Nothing, just routine tests. She forced a smile, but her chest ached with the lie. How could she explain to her mother that her body now carried the legacy of a man like Adrian Cole? That her future, already fragile, was no longer her own? The following week blurred in confusion. Strange nausea gripped her. Fear gnawed at her. Each night she lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling, wondering whether to tell anyone, whether to fight, whether to run. Then one afternoon her phone rang, an unfamiliar number. This is Mr. Cole's office, a clipped voice said. He requests a private meeting. Naomi's stomach knotted. She wanted to refuse. But curiosity, and perhaps a spark of something else, pulled her forward. The meeting was arranged in a discreet hotel lounge. Naomi arrived in her simplest dress, her coat frayed at the edges. She felt painfully out of place among the leather chairs and golden chandeliers. Then he entered. Adrian Cole. Taller than she imagined, his tailored suit cutting a sharp silhouette, his presence filling the room. His eyes, however, weren't as cold as she expected. They carried a flicker of unease, almost vulnerability. You're Naomi, he said, extending his hand. She hesitated, then shook it. You're the man they told me about. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Adrian spoke. I want you to understand, this wasn't my choice. You were never supposed to. He trailed off, frustration flickering in his jaw. But it happened, and now we both have to deal with it. Naomi crossed her arms. Deal with it? You think this is a boardroom problem you can solve with contracts and lawyers? This is my body, my life, not a merger. Adrian's expression softened, caught off guard by her fire. He had expected a frightened girl, someone easily silenced by money. Instead, he found someone unafraid to challenge him. You're right, he admitted quietly. This isn't just about me, or my reputation. It's about you, and whoever might come from this mistake. For the first time since the nightmare began, Naomi saw a glimmer of humanity in the billionaire. Beneath the polished exterior was a man wrestling with something real. But outside that gilded lounge, danger brewed. Clara Westwood had already noticed Adrian's distraction, his secret phone calls. And Damian Cole, Adrian's ambitious brother, had caught wind of whispers at the clinic. The mistake was no longer just a private tragedy. It was becoming a storm, and Naomi and Adrian stood at its center. The night after their first meeting, Naomi couldn't sleep. The billionaire's words echoed in her head. It's about you, and whoever might come from this mistake. He had spoken with honesty, but she didn't know if she could trust him. Could anyone like Adrian Cole, wealthy, powerful, wrapped in a world of privilege, ever truly understand someone like her? But across the city, Adrian was equally restless. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about mergers or quarterly reports. He was thinking about Naomi, the way she had stood in that hotel lounge, defiant and trembling at once. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Clara's polished beauty felt shallow compared to Naomi's raw strength. Yet he knew the danger. If the press uncovered the truth, his empire would collapse. Clara would drag his name through scandal, and investors would abandon him overnight. He had spent his life building walls around himself. Now a single mistake threatened to bring them crashing down. The storm broke sooner than either expected. At a society gala, Clara Westwood cornered Adrian. Her eyes flashed with suspicion. "Who is she?" she demanded. "You've been sneaking out, taking calls. Do you think I don't notice?" Adrian's silence was answer enough. Clara's fury spilled into action. Within hours, whispers began to circulate in glossy magazines. Anonymous insider claims billionaire's secret affair with unknown woman. Naomi saw the headlines the next morning while scrubbing hospital floors during her night shift. Her heart dropped. Unknown woman, that meant her. She was no one, but soon the world would know her name, and the whispers reached Damian Cole. Adrian's older brother had always lived in his shadow. Where Adrian built, Damian schemed. The news of a scandal was an opportunity. If Adrian fell, Damian would rise. He arranged a secret meeting with Clara. Two scorned allies found common cause. "If we expose her," Damian sneered, sliding a folder across the table, "Adrian will lose everything. Then the company will be mine." Clara's lips curled into a smile. "And his spotless image will be ruined forever." Naomi received the warning from the clinic's director himself. "They know," he whispered over the phone. "Clara and Damian, they're preparing to release your identity." Fear nearly consumed her. She thought of her mother, frail and depending on her. She thought of the life inside her, fragile and unasked for. She wanted to vanish. But when she looked in the mirror that night, she saw someone different. Not just a poor girl scrubbing floors, but a woman standing at the crossroads of destiny. So she did something no one expected. She went to Adrian. He was in his penthouse office, staring out over the city when Naomi appeared. Rain streaked the glass behind him. "They're coming for us," she said simply. Adrian turned, his eyes heavy but resolute. "Then we faced them together." The confrontation came 2 days later in the boardroom of Cole Biotech. Claire and Damian stormed in with photographers waiting outside, ready to unveil their scandal. But Naomi was already there, standing beside Adrian. Damian tossed a folder onto the table. "Meet the girl your beloved CEO has been hiding. A charity case, a mistake." Adrian's jaw tightened. He looked at Naomi, then back at the board. "She is no mistake. She is the only person who stood by me when the rest of you only saw dollar signs. What happened to her was wrong, but it revealed the truth about everyone in this room." His gaze pinned his brother. "About how greed blinds us, about how family betrays us." Clara scoffed. "You'll throw away your empire for her? For some nobody?" Naomi's voice cut through the silence. "I may be nobody to you, but I know who I am, and I won't let you decide my worth." The boardroom erupted. Some gasped, others whispered. For the first time, Naomi was no longer invisible. And then, in a twist no one saw coming, the clinic director arrived with evidence. Security footage of Damian bribing staff to leak Naomi's records. Clara's emails surfaced too, exposing her plan to blackmail Adrian into marriage. The trap they had set for Naomi snapped back on them instead. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Damian was forced out of the company. Clara vanished from society pages, her reputation scorched. Adrian, scarred but unbroken, made a choice that stunned his world. He stepped down temporarily as CEO to focus on what truly mattered. I spent years building a fortune, he told reporters, but I almost lost the one thing money can't buy, something real. At his side, Naomi stood tall. She wasn't a scandal anymore. She was the woman who had survived chaos with dignity, who had refused to be silenced or bought. Her life was no longer defined by poverty or invisibility. She was at the center of a story that began as an accident, but turned into something neither of them expected: hope, trust, and a chance at love. One quiet evening, as the city lights glittered below, Adrian turned to Naomi on the balcony of his penthouse. "When this started," he said softly, "it was called a mistake." He touched her hand gently. "But maybe it was the one thing that finally made me see what really matters." Naomi's eyes shone with tears she didn't try to hide. Sometimes the wrong path brings you to the right place. They stood together, not as billionaire and cleaning girl, not as accident and victim, but as two souls who had found each other in the storm. And in that moment, the mistake became destiny.